Marcus Thornfield had built his empire brick by brick, deal by deal, until his name commanded respect in every boardroom from Manhattan to Silicon Valley. At 42, he owned 3 companies, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and a reputation as a man who never looked back. But on this particular Tuesday morning, as he sat in his lawyer's office reviewing his will, something felt different, empty. "Mr. Thornfield, you haven't designated any beneficiaries beyond the charitable foundations," his attorney, James Sullivan, said carefully. "Are you certain about this decision?" Marcus adjusted his Italian silk tie and stared out the window at the bustling street below. "I have no family, James, no wife, no children. The money should go where it can do some good." It wasn't entirely true. He'd had a family once. A wife named Sarah, a son named Tommy. But that was 16 years ago, before the accident that shattered everything he thought he knew about love, responsibility, and forgiveness. Before he learned that some mistakes can never be undone, no matter how much money you throw at them. The phone buzzed. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Thornfield, there's a situation at the downtown office. The construction crew found something during the renovation," Marcus sighed. "Handle it, Linda. That's what I pay people for." "Sir, they found ... a time capsule. From the previous building. It has your name on it." The words hit him like a physical blow. The previous building. The apartment complex he'd bought and demolished 6 months ago. The place where he'd lived with Sarah and Tommy all those years ago. Before everything went wrong. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the dusty shell of what would become his newest office building, staring at a metal box no bigger than a shoebox. His hands trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside were photos, letters, and a small wooden toy truck painted red and blue. Tommy's favorite truck, the construction foreman, a weathered man named Pete, cleared his throat. Found it behind a loose brick in what used to be apartment for B. Looks like someone hid it there years ago. Apartment 4, be their apartment. Marcus picked up the toy truck, and suddenly he was 36 again. Chasing a laughing 6-year-old boy around their cramped living room. Tommy's voice echoed in his memory. "Daddy, watch me. Watch me drive." But Marcus hadn't been watching. Not that night. Not when it mattered most. The first photo showed Sarah pregnant, glowing with happiness as she painted the nursery yellow because they wanted to be surprised. The second showed Tommy as a newborn, impossibly small in Marcus's arms. The third showed the 3 of them at Tommy's first birthday party, cake smeared on everyone's faces. Marcus's vision blurred. He'd tried so hard to forget these moments, to bury them under layers of success and ambition. But here they were, preserved in a time capsule like evidence of a life he'd abandoned. "Mr. Thornfield?" Pete asked. "You okay?" Marcus cleared his throat and straightened his shoulders. "Fine, just unexpected memories." He tucked the box under his arm. "Continue with the renovation. I'll handle this." But as he walked back to his car, Marcus knew he couldn't handle this, not alone, not anymore. The drive to Riverside Cemetery took 43 minutes in traffic. Marcus had made this journey exactly once in 16 years, the day of the funeral. He'd sworn he'd never come back, that it was too painful, too full of guilt. But now, carrying Tommy's time capsule, he felt drawn by something stronger than his own resistance. The headstone was simple gray granite with gold lettering. Thomas Marcus Thornfield, age 6. Beloved son. Beneath it, Sarah had added, he believed in second chances. Marcus knelt and placed the toy truck on the grave. His voice came out as a whisper. "I'm sorry, Tommy. I'm so sorry I wasn't watching. I'm sorry I let you run into that street. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." The words he'd been holding back for 16 years poured out like water through a broken dam. Your mum tried to forgive me, but I couldn't forgive myself. I couldn't look at her without seeing you. I couldn't stay in that apartment, in that life, knowing it was my fault. You were gone. A gentle breeze rustled the oak tree above Tommy's grave, and for a moment, Marcus could swear he heard his son's laughter carried on the wind. I built all this success, thinking it would make the pain go away. But it didn't. Nothing did. And now I don't know how to live with myself anymore. Some conversations are meant to happen at gravesites, a soft voice said behind him. Marcus spun around. A woman in her late 30s stood about 10 feet away, holding the hand of a little girl with pigtails and a bright pink dress. The woman had kind eyes and prematurely grey hair, and something about her seemed familiar. I'm sorry, Marcus said, standing and brushing dirt from his knees. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. You're not disturbing anyone. We come here every week. Paused, studying his face. You're Marcus Thornfield, aren't you? The recognition hit him like lightning. Emma Rodriguez. She smiled sadly. It's Emma Martinez now. This is my daughter Sophia. Emma had been Sarah's best friend, the one who'd stood by Sarah through the divorce proceedings, when Marcus had been too consumed by guilt to fight for his marriage. The one who'd helped Sarah pack up their life together, while Marcus buried himself in 18-hour workdays. How did you know I'd be here? Marcus asked. I didn't. We visit Mrs. Chen's grave every Tuesday. She used to babysit Sophia. Emma's expression softened. But maybe this isn't a coincidence. Little Sophia tugged on her mother's hand. Mama can. I go play by the pretty angel statue. Stay where I can see you, Mia. As Sophia skipped away, Emma stepped closer to Marcus. Sarah used to come here every week until she got sick. Ovarian cancer, 3 years ago. She fought it for 18 months. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah was dead. The woman he'd loved and abandoned, the mother of his child, was gone. I had no idea, he whispered. She asked me not to contact you. Said you'd built a new life, and she didn't want to drag you back into the pain. Emma's voice carried no judgment, only sadness. But I think she was wrong about that. What do you mean? I mean she never stopped loving you, Marcus. She understood why you left. She knew the guilt was eating you alive. But she also knew that Tommy wouldn't have wanted either of you to stop living. Marcus felt tears threatening again. How can you be sure? Because she told me. On her last good day, she made me promise something. Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a sealed envelope with Marcus's name written in Sarah's familiar handwriting. She said, if you ever came back here, if you ever tried to find your way back to Tommy, I should give you this. Marcus's hands shook as he took the letter. She knew I'd come. She hoped you would. She said the Marcus she married was too good a man to stay lost forever. Before Marcus could respond, Sophia's voice rang out across the cemetery, high and excited. Mama, come look at this. Emma called back, what is it, baby? There's a little boy here. He looks just like the picture. Emma and Marcus exchanged glances. What picture? Emma called. Sophia came running back, clutching something in her small hands. When she reached them, she held up a photograph, weathered and faded. It was one of the pictures from Tommy's time capsule, showing him at age 6, grinning at the camera with a gap-toothed smile. How did you get this? Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. The little boy gave it to me. He said to tell his daddy he forgives him. Marcus felt the world tilt on its axis. He looked around the cemetery, but saw no other children. No little boy anywhere. Emma knelt down beside her daughter. Sophia, where is this little boy now? Sophia pointed toward Tommy's grave. He went back to sleep under the pretty stone. But he said he's not sad anymore, because his daddy came to visit. Marcus stared at the photograph in Sophia's tiny hands. It was definitely from the time capsule, which was still sitting in his car. There was no logical explanation for how it had gotten here. How Sophia had found it, or why she was talking about a little boy who looked like the picture. "Sophia," Emma said gently, "are you sure you saw a little boy?" "Yes, Mama. He had the same eyes as this man." Sophia pointed at Marcus. "And he said something else." "What did he say, sweetheart?" Marcus asked, kneeling down to Sophia's level. "He said to tell you that love doesn't end when people go to sleep forever, it just gets bigger." The words hit Marcus like a revelation. This was impossible, unexplainable, but somehow absolutely real. Tommy had found a way to reach him, to offer the forgiveness Marcus had been too afraid to seek. Stories like this make people wonder about the mysteries that connect us all. The threads of love that refuse to be broken even by death itself. Some would call it coincidence, others would say it's something more. But for Marcus Thornfield, standing in that cemetery with a photograph that shouldn't exist and a message that changed everything, the explanation didn't matter. Only the healing did. Emma stood and placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Maybe you should read Sarah's letter now." With trembling fingers, Marcus opened the envelope. Sarah's handwriting was weaker than he remembered, evidence of her illness, but her words were strong. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, it means you finally found your way back to us. I always knew you would. The man I married was never a coward, just someone drowning in grief who forgot how to swim. Tommy's death wasn't your fault. Accidents happen, and blame doesn't bring anyone back. But love does. Love brings people back in ways we never expect. I forgive you for leaving. I forgive you for the divorce. I forgive you for choosing guilt over healing. Now you need to forgive yourself. Tommy would want you to live, Marcus. He would want you to love again, to build a family again, to remember that every ending can be a beginning if we're brave enough to start over. I won't be there to see your new chapter, but I'll be cheering for you from wherever I am. The time capsule was my idea. I hid it before we moved out, hoping someday it would find its way back to you. I wanted you to remember who you were before the pain took over. You were a father, Marcus. You were Tommy's father, and that's something death can never change. Take care of yourself. Take care of your heart. And if you ever meet someone who makes you believe in second chances, don't let fear steal that gift from you. All my love, always, Sarah. P.S. Tommy wants you to know he's been watching over you all these years. He's proud of what you've built, but he's prouder that you finally came home. Marcus read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Sarah had known he would come back. She'd orchestrated the time capsule, knowing the building would eventually be demolished, knowing he would buy the property, knowing he would find Tommy's toys and memories. She planned all of this, he whispered. Emma nodded. Sarah was always good at playing the long game. She believed in destiny, in things happening when they're supposed to happen. Sophia tugged on Marcus's jacket. "Mister, are you Tommy's daddy?" Marcus looked down at the little girl with her earnest brown eyes and serious expression. "Yes, sweetheart. I was Tommy's daddy." "Then you're not lost anymore." The simple words from a child cut straight to the heart of everything. Marcus wasn't lost anymore. For the first time in 16 years, he knew exactly where he belonged. "Emma," he said, turning to face his late wife's best friend. "Would you and Sophia like to have lunch with me? I'd like to hear more about Sarah's last few years. And I'd like to get to know this wise little girl who talks to angels." Emma smiled, the first genuinely happy expression Marcus had seen from her we'd like that very much. As they walked toward the cemetery gates, Sophia skipped between them, chattering about school, and her friends, and her favorite books. Marcus found himself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. "Emma," he said quietly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, are you happy?" "I mean really happy." She considered the question carefully. "I'm content. I have..." "Sophia, I have my job at the library. I have a small apartment that feels like home. It's not the life I dreamed of when I was 20, but it's a good life." "What happened to Sophia's father?" Emma's expression darkened slightly. "He left when I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. I haven't heard from him since." Marcus felt a familiar pang of guilt, recognizing his own story in reverse. "I'm sorry, that must have been incredibly difficult." "It was, but Sophia and we're a team. We take care of each other." They reached Marcus's car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than Emma made in 2 years. But instead of feeling the usual pride in his success, Marcus felt embarrassed by the disparity. "This is beautiful," Emma said politely, running her hand along the hood. "It's just a car," Marcus replied, surprising himself with the dismissive tone. "Emma, can I ask you another question?" "Sure. Do you think people can really change? I mean fundamentally change who they are?" Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. "I think people can choose to become who they were always meant to be. Sometimes it takes a crisis. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a little girl talking to angels in a cemetery. But yes, I believe people can change. Even someone like me. Someone who ran away when things got hard. Especially someone like you. The fact that you're asking the question means you're already changing. If stories like this touch something deep in your heart, there are many more waiting to be discovered. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen when we least expect them. In moments that seem ordinary but carry extraordinary weight." They had lunch at a small family diner near the cemetery. The kind of place Marcus would never have considered entering 6 months ago, but sitting in a red vinyl booth, watching Sophia color on paper placemats while Emma told stories about Sarah's final years. Marcus felt more at peace than he had in any 5-star restaurant. "She talked about you all the time," Emma said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Especially toward the end. She would wonder what you were doing, whether you were happy, whether you'd found someone to love." "I never found anyone," Marcus admitted. "I never even looked. I convinced myself I didn't deserve happiness." Sarah worried about that. "She used to say you had enough love in your heart for a dozen families, but you'd locked it all away out of guilt." Sophia looked up from her coloring. "My teacher says guilt is like carrying a heavy backpack full of rocks. You can put it down anytime you want, but most people forget they're allowed to." Marcus stared at the 6-year-old in amazement. "That's very wise, Sophia. Where did your teacher learn something like that?" "She used to be sad, like you," Sophia said, matter-of-factly, returning to her drawing. "But then she decided to put down her backpack." Emma laughed softly. Sophia has a gift for seeing straight to the heart of things. It used to drive her preschool teachers crazy. "What's she drawing?" Marcus asked, leaning forward to get a better look at Sophia's artwork. "It's you and Tommy," Sophia said, holding up the paper. "He told me you used to build things together." The drawing showed 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, standing next to what looked like a building made of blocks. In the corner, Sophia had drawn a heart with Daddy plus Tommy equals love forever, written inside in crayon. Marcus felt tears welling up again. But this time they weren't tears of guilt or regret. They were tears of recognition, of a heart beginning to heal. "Sophia, can I keep this?" he asked. Of course. Tommy said you might need something to remember him when you get scared again. When I get scared again? Sophia nodded seriously. He said, love is scary sometimes, because it means caring about people, even when they might go to sleep forever. But that's what makes it so special. Marcus looked at Emma, who was watching the exchange with tears in her own eyes. Is she always this profound? Every single day? I think she inherited Sarah's gift for seeing what people need to hear. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, walking through a nearby park, where Sophia fed ducks and Marcus found himself laughing at her running commentary on the ducks' personalities. When evening came, Marcus didn't want the day to end. Emma, he said as they prepared to part ways, would it be okay if I saw you both again? I mean, regularly. Emma studied his face carefully. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Are you looking for a replacement family? Something to fill the hole that Tommy and Sarah left behind? The question caught him off guard, but he realized immediately that she was right to ask it. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe part of me is. But mostly, I think I'm looking for a way to live again. You and Sophia, you've shown me what that might look like. And what does it look like? Marcus thought for a moment. Like caring about someone besides myself. Like having something to come home to besides an empty apartment and a full bank account. Like being part of something bigger than my own guilt. Emma nodded slowly. Okay. But I need you to understand something. Sophia and I, we're not a project for you to fix, or a charity case for you to save. We're people with our own lives and our own needs. I understand. And if you're going to be part of our lives, you can't disappear when things get complicated or uncomfortable. Sophia has already lost one father figure. I won't let it happen again. The words stung, but Marcus knew he deserved them. I can't promise I'll be perfect, Emma, but I can promise I won't run away again. Tommy taught me that today. Sophia, who had been listening to the adult conversation with unusual seriousness, walked over and took Marcus's hand. Don't worry, Mama. Tommy says Marcus is ready now. Ready for what, baby? Emma asked. Ready to be brave. 2 weeks later, Marcus found himself in a situation he never could have imagined. He was sitting on the floor of Emma and Sophia's small apartment, helping Sophia build a castle out of blocks, while Emma graded papers at the kitchen table. It was a Tuesday evening, and he'd been coming over every Tuesday and Friday since their meeting at the cemetery. The tower needs to be taller, Sophia announced, adding another block to the precarious structure. Are you sure? It's getting pretty wobbly, Marcus warned. That's okay. Tommy says the best castles are the ones that look like they might fall down but don't. Marcus had stopped being surprised by Sophia's casual references to Tommy. Whether she was really communicating with his son or simply had an extraordinary imagination, her words consistently offered exactly the wisdom he needed to hear. Sophia, he said carefully, when you talk to Tommy, does he ever mention anything about me building something new? Sophia considered this seriously. He says you're already building something new. You just can't see it yet, because it's made of invisible blocks. Invisible blocks. Like trust and kindness, and not being scared to love people. Those are the strongest blocks of all. From the kitchen table, Emma looked up from her papers and smiled. Over the past 2 weeks, Marcus had been quietly transforming their lives, in ways both large and small. He'd fixed their leaky faucet, bought Sophia a new winter coat when he noticed her old one was too small, and started picking up groceries on his way over so Emma didn't have to worry about dinner on his visit days. But more importantly, he'd been present. Really present. When Sophia had nightmares, Marcus was there to help Emma comfort her. When Emma worried about money, Marcus listened without immediately trying to solve the problem with his checkbook. When the three of them watched movies together. On Friday nights, Marcus didn't check his phone once. "Marcus," Emma said, setting down her pen, "can I talk to you about something?" "Of course." He stood up, leaving Sophia to continue building. They moved to the small balcony overlooking the parking lot. It wasn't much of a view, but the evening air was crisp and clean. "I've been thinking about what you said that first day, about looking for a way to live again," Emma began. "Yeah, I think I've been looking for the same thing. I've been so focused on just surviving, on making sure Sophia and I were okay, that I forgot what it felt like to actually enjoy life." Marcus leaned against the railing. "And now I remember. These past 2 weeks, watching you with Sophia, seeing how patient and gentle you are with her, it's reminded me that there's more to life than just getting by. Emma, I need to tell you something." She turned to face him, and Marcus was struck again by how beautiful she was, not in the polished way of the women he'd dated in his professional circles, but in a real lived-in way that spoke of strength and resilience. "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "With both of you. I know it's complicated, and I know it's soon, but I can't pretend it's not happening." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Marcus, do you love me? Or do you love the idea of having a family again?" It was the same question she'd asked 2 weeks ago, but now Marcus had an answer. "I love you, Emma. I love your strength, and your kindness, and the way you've raised Sophia to see magic in the world. I love that you ask hard questions, and that you don't let me get away with easy answers. I love that you knew Sarah, and that you understand where I've been, but you don't define me by my past mistakes. And Sophia. I love Sophia because she's herself. Not because she reminds me of Tommy. She's wise, and funny, and absolutely fearless. She makes me want to be the kind of man who deserves to be in her life." Emma reached out and took his hand. "I'm scared, Marcus, so am I. What if we mess this up? What if we hurt each other? Then we'll figure it out together." Sophia told me that Tommy said the best castles are the ones that look like they might fall down but don't. Maybe the best families are the same way. Emma laughed, and the sound was like music. "You're going to quote my 6-year-old daughter back to me, if that's what it takes." She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. It was their first kiss, and it tasted like hope and second chances, and the kind of love that builds slowly and lasts forever. When they broke apart, Sophia's voice called from inside the apartment. "Are you guys done being mushy? I want to show Marcus my castle." They laughed and went back inside, where Sophia had indeed built an impressive castle, complete with a moat made from a blue scarf and tiny toy knights standing guard. "It's beautiful, Sophia. What's it called?" Marcus asked. "Castle Second Chance," she announced proudly. "Tommy helped me name it." Marcus knelt down beside the castle and saw that Sophia had placed a small photo inside the main tower. It was the picture of Tommy that had mysteriously appeared at the cemetery, now carefully positioned so he was looking out over the castle's courtyard. "He wanted to live there too," Sophia explained. "He says it's the perfect place for people who are learning to be brave." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the same lawyer's office where this story began, but everything had changed. James Sullivan shuffled through papers with barely concealed amazement. "Mr. Thornfield, I have to say, this is the most comprehensive revision of a will I've ever prepared." Marcus smiled, adjusting the simple gold band on his left finger. "I have a lot more to live for now, James." The new will established trust funds for Sophia's education, left the majority of Marcus's estate to Emma, and set aside significant amounts for charities focused on grief counseling and support for single mothers. But most importantly, it established the Tommy Thornfield Foundation. dedicated to building playgrounds and community centers in underserved neighborhoods. "The foundation is a beautiful tribute," James said. "Your son would be proud, I think." "He is," Marcus replied, thinking of the small framed drawing on his office desk. Sophia's stick-figure portrait of him and Tommy building things together. The wedding had been small and simple. Held in the same park where Marcus, Emma, and Sophia had fed ducks on their first afternoon together. Sophia had been the flower girl, scattering petals with the seriousness of someone performing a sacred duty. In her wedding speech later, she'd announced that Tommy had been there too. Sitting in the front row next to Sarah, both of them smiling. Marcus had stopped questioning Sophia's communications with Tommy. Whether they were real supernatural encounters or the intuitive wisdom of a child processing the adult world around her, they consistently brought comfort and clarity to everyone involved. Now, as he signed the final papers, Marcus reflected on how completely his life had transformed. The penthouse, overlooking Central Park, had been sold, replaced by a warm, slightly chaotic house with a big backyard where Sophia could play and Emma could garden. The sleek Mercedes had been traded for a family-friendly SUV with car seats and soccer equipment in the back. His companies were thriving under the management of trusted colleagues, while Marcus focused on being present for his new family. He still worked, but now he left the office at 5 o'clock to help Sophia with homework and have dinner with Emma. Weekends were for family time, not board meetings. The most remarkable change was in Marcus himself. The guilt that had consumed him for 16 years hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had been transformed into something productive. Instead of punishing himself for Tommy's death, he honored Tommy's memory by living fully. By being the father to Sophia that he'd been learning to be with Tommy, by loving Emma with the wholeness he'd once shared with Sarah. "There's one more thing," James said, pulling out a final document. The adoption papers for Sophia came through this morning. Marcus's eyes filled with tears as he signed the papers that would legally make Sophia his daughter. Emma had been hesitant about the adoption at first, worried that Sophia might feel disloyal to her biological father, but Sophia had been adamant. "He doesn't want me, but Marcus does," she'd said with 6-year-old logic. "Tommy says choosing your family is just as good as being born into it." That evening, Marcus arrived home to find Emma in the kitchen making dinner while Sophia did homework. At the table, it was an ordinary Tuesday evening, the kind of moment he'd once thought was lost to him forever. "How did it go?" Emma asked, kissing him hello. "It's official. Everything's taken care of." He pulled out the adoption certificate and showed it to both of them. Sophia squealed with delight and launched herself into his arms. "Now you're really my daddy. I was always your daddy, sweetheart. This just makes it official." "Tommy's excited too," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "He says now he has a sister, and you have a daughter, and everyone has what they need." Later that night, after Sophia was asleep and Emma was grading papers, Marcus stepped out onto their back porch and looked up at the stars. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear children playing in the neighborhood, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "Thank you," he whispered to the night sky, to Tommy, to Sarah, to whatever force had brought him back from the edge of his own despair. "Thank you for giving me another chance." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree in their yard, and for just a moment, Marcus could swear he heard two voices carried on the wind. Tommy's voice, bright and joyful, "I love you, Daddy," and Sarah's voice, warm and proud, "Well done, my love, well done." The next morning brought new routines and new joys. Sophia bounded into the kitchen, wearing her school uniform and a grin that could light up the world. "Daddy, will you braid my hair?" she asked, using the title that still made Marcus's heart skip a beat every time he heard it. As he carefully plaited her dark hair, Sophia chatted about her upcoming school presentation on family trees. I'm going to include Tommy, she announced. Mrs. Patterson says family trees can include people who live in our hearts, even if they don't live in our houses. Emma smiled from across the kitchen. That sounds perfect, baby, and I'm going to put Sarah on there too, because she was Tommy's mama, and she helped you find us, Daddy. Marcus finished the braid and kissed the top of Sophia's head. I think that's exactly what Sarah would want. As they walked Sophia to school together, Marcus marveled at how natural it all felt. The morning routine, the casual conversation, the easy intimacy of a family that belonged together. This was what he'd been searching for all those years. Not in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in the simple daily acts of love and commitment. Marcus, Emma said as they walked back home, do you ever regret it? Giving up the penthouse lifestyle for suburban chaos? Marcus looked at her in surprise. Are you kidding? Emma, this is the first time in 16 years that I've felt like I was living instead of just existing. Even when Sophia has nightmares and crawls into our bed at 3 in the morning. Especially then, do you know what I used to do at 3 in the morning? Lie awake thinking about all the ways I'd failed as a father. Now I get to actually be a father. Emma slipped her hand into his. She adores you, you know. Last week she told her teacher that she has the best daddy in the whole world because you came back from being lost and found your family. She said that. She also said that Tommy told her some daddies get lost for a while, but the really good ones always find their way home eventually. They walked in comfortable silence for a few blocks, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Emma spoke again. Marcus, I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. Okay. When Sophia was born, when I was holding her for the first time, I made her a promise. I promised her that even though her biological father wasn't there, someday she would have a daddy who would love her completely and never leave her. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face his wife. Emma. I didn't know how that promise would be kept. I just knew it would be, because she deserved it. And now, watching you with her, seeing how patient and devoted you are, I know the promise has been fulfilled. She's easy to love. So are you. That afternoon, Marcus left work early to attend Sophia's soccer game. As he cheered from the sidelines alongside Emma and the other parents, he caught sight of his reflection in his phone screen. The man looking back at him was different from the one who'd sat in James Sullivan's office 2 years ago. This man had laugh lines around his eyes and grass stains on his khakis. This man knew how to braid hair and pack school lunches and kiss scraped knees better. This man was a father. After the game, Sophia ran over with grass in her hair and a huge smile on her face. Did you see my goal, Daddy? I saw it. It was amazing. Tommy was cheering too. He said he's proud of me for being brave like you. Marcus knelt down to Sophia's level. You know what, sweetheart? I think Tommy would be proud of all of us. We've all learned to be brave. Yeah, Sophia agreed, throwing her arms around his neck. We're a brave family. As they walked to the car, Emma linking her arm through Marcus's while Sophia skipped ahead. Marcus thought about the little girl's words. They were a brave family. They'd all taken enormous risks, Marcus, by opening his heart again. Emma by trusting a man who'd once run from love. Sophia by accepting a new father and believing in the possibility of permanence. But courage, Marcus had learned, wasn't the absence of fear. It was the decision to love, despite the fear, to build, despite the possibility of loss. To believe in tomorrow, despite yesterday's pain. That night, as he tucked Sophia into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, do you still miss Tommy? Marcus considered the question carefully. Yes, sweetheart, I'll always miss Tommy. But now when I think about him, I don't just feel sad. I feel grateful too. Grateful for what? Grateful that I got to be his daddy, even for a little while. Grateful that he taught me how to love you. Grateful that he led me back to what matters most. Sophia nodded wisely. Tommy says that's exactly right. He says love doesn't end when people go to sleep forever. It just finds new places to grow, after. Sophia fell asleep. Marcus found Emma in their bedroom, reading a book about child psychology. She looked up when he entered. How was bedtime? Perfect. She asked me about Tommy, and I realized something. I'm not the same man who lost Tommy 16 years ago. That man was broken by grief because he thought love was supposed to protect the people we care about from all harm. This man understands that love can't prevent loss, but it can survive it. It can even be transformed by it. Emma set down her book and reached for his hand. What do you mean? I mean my love for Tommy didn't die when he did. It just changed form. Now it lives in how I love Sophia, in how I love you, in the foundation we're building in his name. It lives in every moment I choose to be present, instead of running away. Emma smiled and pulled him down beside her on the bed. You know what I think? What? I think Sarah knew this would happen. I think she knew that finding Tommy's time capsule would lead you not just back to him, but forward to us. You really think she planned all of this? I think Sarah understood something about love that it took you 16 years to learn. That it's not about holding on so tightly that you never risk losing anything. It's about loving so completely that even loss can't destroy what you've built. Marcus lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't run away after Tommy died. If I'd stayed and grieved with Sarah instead of divorcing her. Different, Emma said simply. But not necessarily better. Maybe you both needed to go through what you went through to become the people you are now. Maybe Tommy needed time to grow up in whatever place he is now, so he could be ready to help Sophia when she needed him. You believe that? That Tommy is really still, around somehow? Emma was quiet for a moment. I believe that love creates connections that death can't break. Whether that's literally Tommy talking to Sophia, or just the power of love working through her intuition, does it matter? The result is the same. A little girl who's never met your son somehow knows exactly what you need to hear to heal. The next morning brought unexpected news. Marcus was at the office when his assistant buzzed him with a call from Sophia's school. Mr. Thornfield, this is Mrs. Patterson, Sophia's teacher. I'm calling because something wonderful happened today, and I thought you'd want to know. Is Sophia okay? Oh yes, she's fine. It's about her family tree presentation. She got up in front of the class and talked about her family, including Tommy and Sarah. She explained that some family members live in heaven, but are still part of the family tree, because love doesn't end. Marcus smiled. That sounds like Sophia. Well, after her presentation, another little boy in the class raised his hand. His name is David, and he lost his baby sister last year. He's been having a very hard time, hasn't spoken much in class. But today, after Sophia's presentation, he stood up and said that maybe his sister could be on his family tree too, even though she's in heaven. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. Mr. Thornfield, I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've never seen a child help another child process grief so naturally and beautifully. Sophia has a very special gift. Yes, she does. The reason I'm calling is that David's mother would like to meet you and your wife. She's struggling with how to help David heal, and she thinks Sophia's approach might be helpful. That evening, Marcus shared the conversation with Emma and Sophia over dinner. Of course we'll help David, Sophia said matter-of-factly. That's what families do, they help other families. What do you think we should tell David's mum? Emma asked. Sophia considered this seriously. We should tell her that talking to people who went to sleep forever isn't scary. It's like talking to people who moved to a different house but still love you just as much. 2 weeks later, Marcus found himself in a situation that would have terrified him 2 years earlier. He was sitting in a grief counselor's office with Emma, Sophia, and David's family, sharing their story of loss and healing. David's mother, Janet, had brought her son to meet Sophia, hoping that connecting with another child who understood loss might help David process his own grief. David hasn't talked about his sister since the funeral, Janet explained. He just shut down. The therapists say it's normal, but as his mother, I feel helpless. Sophia looked at David, who was sitting quietly beside his mother, clutching a small stuffed elephant. What was your sister's name? She asked gently. Lucy, David whispered. That's a pretty name. How old was she? She was going to be one, but she got sick. Sophia nodded seriously. That's really sad. But you know what? I bet Lucy is playing with Tommy and all the other kids who had to go to sleep forever before they got big. David looked up for the first time since entering the room. Really, and I bet she misses you and wants you to know she's okay. Do you know? Sophia glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Sometimes I can hear Tommy talking to me, not with my ears, but with my heart. He tells me things that help me feel better. Maybe if you listen really carefully with your heart, you might hear Lucy too. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly, they almost missed it, he said. I dream about her sometimes. She's always laughing. Dreams are one of the ways people who went to sleep forever talk to us, Sophia said confidently. Lucy must really love you to visit you in your dreams. Over the next hour, the two children talked, while the adults watched in amazement. Sophia's natural empathy and her matter-of-fact approach to communicating with Tommy helped. David began to open up about his feelings for the first time since Lucy's death. When it was time to leave, David hugged Sophia goodbye. Thank you for telling me about the dream thing, he said. You're welcome. And David, if you ever want to talk about Lucy, you can call me. I'm really good at listening to stories about people who are sleeping forever. In the car afterward, Emma shook her head in wonder. That was incredible. How does she know exactly what to say? Tommy teaches her, Sophia said from the back seat. As if it were the most obvious thing in the world, Marcus caught her eye in the rearview mirror. Sophia, do you think Tommy wants us to help other families who are sad? Of course, Daddy. That's why you found his toys in that box. He wanted you to remember how to love people, and then he wanted you to teach other people how to do it too. The conversation sparked an idea that would transform their lives once again. Over the next few months, Marcus and Emma began developing a program through the Tommy Thornfield Foundation to connect grieving families with families who had successfully navigated loss. They called it the Second Chance Family Network. Sophia naturally became the program's youngest ambassador, helping other children understand that grief didn't have to mean the end of love. The program's first official event was held exactly 2 years after Marcus had found Tommy's time capsule. 50 families gathered in a community center that Marcus had built in Tommy's memory, sharing stories and supporting each other through the complex journey of grief and healing. Marcus stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of parents and children who had come seeking hope and felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had grown from his darkest moment. 2 years ago, he began, I thought my story was over. I thought grief had taken everything from me that mattered. I was wrong. Grief had taken my son, but it hadn't taken my capacity to love. It had just buried it under so much pain that I forgot it was there. He paused, finding Emma and Sophia in the crowd. Sophia gave him a thumbs up and mouthed, You're doing great. Daddy, my son Tommy died when he was 6 years old. For 16 years, I let that tragedy define me. I let it convince me that I didn't deserve a second chance at happiness. But Tommy had other plans. Marcus told the story of the time capsule, of meeting Emma and Sophia at the cemetery, of Sophia's inexplicable connection to Tommy, and the healing that had followed. I'm not here to tell you that grief goes away, he continued. It doesn't, but I'm here to tell you that it can be transformed. It can become a force for love instead of a barrier to it. It can connect us to others who understand our pain and help us find meaning in our loss. When he finished speaking, the room was silent for a moment. Then a woman in the back row stood up. Mr. Thornfield, my daughter died in a car accident 3 years ago. I haven't been able to function since then. How do I start? Before Marcus could answer, Sophia had slipped away from Emma and was walking toward the woman. She stopped in front of her and looked up with serious brown eyes. What was your daughter's name? Sophia asked. Rebecca, she was 16. That's a beautiful name. I bet Rebecca is taking care of all the kids who went to sleep forever. That's what big kids do. The woman knelt down to Sophia's level, tears streaming down her face. Do you really think so? I know so. And I bet she wants you to be happy again. Kids who go to sleep forever always want their mamas and daddies to remember how to smile. The woman hugged Sophia tightly, and Sophia hugged her back with the fierce protectiveness of someone who understood that love was the only thing that really mattered. From that moment, Sophia became the heart of the Second Chance Family Network. She had an uncanny ability to connect with grieving children and help them process their emotions in healthy ways. Child psychologists began studying her methods, trying to understand how a little girl with no formal training could be so effective at grief counseling. But Marcus and Emma knew the secret. Sophia's gift wasn't technique or training. It was her absolute belief that love transcended death, that families could be chosen as well as born, and that everyone deserved a second chance at happiness. As the program grew and expanded to other cities, Marcus often reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The successful businessman who had once measured his worth in quarterly profits now measured his days in moments of connection, acts of service, and the laughter of children who were learning to hope again. One evening, as he tucked Sophia into bed after a particularly successful program event, she looked up at him with a thoughtful expression. Daddy, do you know what Tommy told me today? What did he tell you, sweetheart? He said you've learned the most important lesson. What lesson is that? That love isn't something you keep. It's something you give away. And the more you give away, the more you have. Marcus kissed her forehead and smoothed her hair. Tommy's a pretty smart kid. Yeah, Sophia agreed sleepily. And he says he's proud of his daddy for figuring it out. As Marcus turned off the light and closed Sophia's door, he realized that his daughter was right. Love wasn't something to be hoarded or protected from loss. It was meant to be shared, multiplied, given freely to anyone who needed it. The scared, broken man who had sat in that lawyer's office, planning to leave his fortune to charity because he had no family, was gone. In his place was a man who understood. That family wasn't just about blood relations or legal documents. It was about choosing to love, day after day. Despite the risks and the inevitable pain, it was about second chances and new beginnings. And the courage to believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. It was about a little girl screaming, "Daddy, that's my brother," in a cemetery, and changing everything with 5 simple words. It was about love that refuses to die, even when death tries to kill it. Years later, when Marcus was asked to speak at conferences about grief recovery and family healing, he would always end his presentations the same way. I used to think that losing someone you love was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Now I know that the worst thing is letting that loss prevent you from loving again. Because when we close our hearts to protect ourselves from pain, We also close them to joy, to connection, to the very things that make life worth living. My son Tommy taught me that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. It becomes the foundation for new love, new families, new chances to make a difference in the world. If you're here tonight because you've lost someone you love, I want you to know that your story isn't over. The person you've lost wouldn't want it to be over. They would want you to take all the love you shared with them and use it to build something beautiful in the world. They would want you to find your second chance family, whether that's through marriage, adoption, friendship, or service to others. They would want you to discover that the human heart's capacity for love isn't diminished by loss, it's expanded by it. And if you're very lucky, you might find that the person you've lost is still with you in ways you never expected, guiding you toward the love and healing you need, speaking through the voices of children who somehow know exactly what you need to hear, because that's what love does. It finds a way. It always finds a way. The story of Marcus Thornfield, Emma Martinez, and Sophia became a testament to the transformative power of love, loss, and the courage to begin again. It reminded everyone who heard it that families come in all shapes and sizes, that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds, and that sometimes the most profound gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when their earthly journey ends, a little boy named Tommy smiled and whispered to his friend Sarah, "I told you Daddy would figure it out eventually." Because love always finds a way. It always finds a way home.